Yeah, we're just I'm live, but we are waiting for the room to be made. Look at the picture I got up right now.
What did you just say, Tom?
Yo, what's up, guys? Wow. Thank you, Jilsk. Anybody wants to I need I think like 14 more members until I meet my YouTube goal and they give me money. So you want to, you can it's only $3. I made it like one of the cheaper options. It's just $3. And even if it's just 1 month, YouTube will give me extra money. So I'd rather have you do that than probably super chat. But I'm just waiting for the room to be made. It looks like it was created. Okay, I'm gonna join it now.
And who goes first, and we can move on from that.
It looks like they're still getting ready. Thanks,
Testing
Jules.
1 2 3. Testing 1 2 3.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Your mic is good. Billy, do you want to talk real quick? And John, just while we're waiting, just make sure mics are good.
Yeah. Can you all hear me?
Yeah. Testing
Yeah.
1 2 3.
Your mics are good, but I don't hear the Red Bull, Billy. I just wanted to, for full disclosure, in case you needed to hear the Red Bull.
I have my coffee. It's all good.
Did you like just wake up?
Kinda. I slept in actually. I wasn't expecting to.
Yeah, I woke up.
All right, it just sounds like they're kind of like bullshitting right now, so I guess I'll just wait until they're ready to go. But thanks for the memberships, Jilskin Saxy. Oh, you can gift a membership. Oh, wow. Oh, thanks, Skinny. There you go. Wow. Holy crap. Wow. Thank you, Skinny. Thank you, brother Skinny. Oh shit, here we go.
Affirmative on this. And so then they'll be opening this up with 10-minute openings, 5 minutes each. And I don't know who's decided to go first. Have you guys decided who's going to go first, John and Matt?
Yeah, I'm gonna go first.
Okay, great. Let me. So, are you ready, John? Are you ready to start?
Uh, yeah, let me pull up my opening here. Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay. When you start, John, I will start the time.
Okay. First of all, I'd like to thank everyone for being here. Thank you, James, for creating this room, and Jason for agreeing to help mod with James. I especially thank Piper and Billy, who were very agreeable in negotiations for this debate. That wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for their sincerity to debate and their dedication to make it a reality. Tonight, we're going to argue about whether Christianity or atheism best explains morality. Matt and I, as Christians, understand that good and evil exist, and that good is grounded in the nature of God, and that evil is an absence of or separation from this good. They're not merely illusions, as Nietzsche characterizes. It's not some fictitious invention of the human mind, nor is God pitifully indifferent, as Richard Dawkins says of the natural universe. But he has a purpose for our lives, to bring him glory, and for those who believe in him to joy him and enjoy him forever. The God of the Bible teaches us that he is good. He reveals that to us in the actions of Christ, who is a reflection of his goodness and the very being, the nature of God. He humbled himself by becoming a man to teach us what we ought to do. What we ought to do is embodied in Christ's command to love the Lord our God with all our heart, soul, mind, and strength, and love our neighbor as ourselves. We understand that we cannot do the latter without the former because God is love, and without the experiential knowledge of God, we cannot understand what love is in order to love ourselves, let alone love our neighbor as ourselves. Furthermore, the Bible in Romans 3:4 tells us that God is true and every human being a liar, so that he may be proved right when he speaks and prevails when he judges. In fact, it is impossible for God to lie, according to Hebrews 6:18. He is immutable, as the Bible says in Numbers 23:19, that God is not a son of man, that he should change his mind. Therefore, we can trust the morals that emanate from God's character, because they will not change on a whim, as the moral views of a human being may change within his subjective mind. The Bible tells us that there are eternal consequences for our actions. It tells us in Romans 6:23 that the wages of sin is death, and in Ezekiel 18:20 that the soul who sins shall die. It also teaches us in Romans 3:23 that all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God, and in John 3:18 that all of us stand condemned already if we do not believe in the name of Jesus Christ. So the question is, how then can we be moral? If, as it says in Mark 10:18, no one is good but God alone, and it says in James 2:10, whoever keeps the whole law yet stumbles at just one point is guilty of breaking all of it. He explains that if we have not committed adultery but have committed murder, we are a lawbreaker. We cannot be considered a law abider. Therefore, it is not the preponderance of moral actions performed that makes us moral, but it is the violation of a law or code that makes us immoral. And no amount of good deeds from that point further can make us good people. As Isaiah 64 says, all of us have become like one who is unclean, and our righteous acts are like filthy rags. We all shrivel up like a leaf, and like the wind, our sins sweep us away. But Christianity is superior to atheism in that God has provided a way for us to be judged as moral or righteous, whereas in atheism we are forever morally flawed. In Christianity, we become moral by faith in God. It says in Romans 4:3, Abraham believed in God, and it was credited to him as righteousness. Therefore, by believing in Christ's righteous works on the cross, we are imputed his righteousness, as it says in Romans 3:21 to 22. But now, apart from the law, the righteousness of God has been made known, which the law and the prophets testify. This righteousness is given through faith in Christ to all who believe. So, what then does atheism have to offer in terms of morality? The answer is nothing. It doesn't provide us a basis for understanding what is good and what is evil. It doesn't provide us a reason to do what is right rather than what is wrong. In fact, in his work Why Be Moral, the atheist Kai Nielsen says, pure practical reason, even with the good knowledge of the facts, will not take you to morality. Thank you, and God bless you.
Okay, great. That was almost exactly 5 minutes. Good job, John. And I guess we'll now go to Matt for his opening. And Matt, whenever you're ready, I'll start your time.
Okay, well, thank you for everyone. Thank you, John, for that great opening. Does Christianity better explain morality than atheism? Yes, absolutely. John showed us why we can trust God due to his unchanging nature and will not lie about anything, including his moral standards for us. Christianity is a worldview, a network of presuppositions that are not tested by natural science, and in terms of which all experiences are related and interpreted based upon what God has revealed to us through his word that also took on flesh and dwelt among men, his son Jesus Christ of Nazareth. In the words of Dr. William Lane Craig, moral values are part and parcel of a Christian worldview. So, under Christianity, an essential feature is morality, just what is right, what is wrong, what is good, and what is evil. So, a Christian can understand why it is morally virtuous to love your neighbor as yourself, and why murder is wrong, and a host of other moral questions. We can use the Word of God as our standard. But what about atheism? Atheism offers zero standards in and of itself. Morality is not part and parcel of atheism. The Atheist Bible, the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy, defines atheism as the view that there are no gods. American Atheist Inc. defines atheism as a lack of belief in God or gods. Atheism cannot offer a network of presuppositions that are not tested by science, and in terms of which all experiences are related and interpreted. Therefore, atheism in and of itself cannot offer an explanation for morality. So Christianity simply wins by default. Let me put it in a nice syllogism. Premise one: if morality is an essential part of the Christian worldview, and atheism in and of itself tells us nothing about morality, then Christianity is better at explaining morality. Premise two: morality is an essential part of the Christian worldview, and atheism in and of itself tells us nothing about morality. Conclusion: Christianity is better at explaining morality. Atheism isn't going to tell us there is an objective moral fact that murder is wrong. An atheist is going to have to go somewhere other than atheism to answer that question. Most likely, the atheist will hold firmly to the view murder is wrong because he or she has been culturally conditioned in the belief that murder is wrong and loving your neighbor is good because of the influence of the Christian worldview on their society and upbringing. Even holding to the belief that there is an objective moral fact that murder is wrong based upon some unknown or undiscovered law of nature is still not nearly as likely to motivate a person to act in accordance with that law as a belief that you will one day stand before God and have to give him an answer for the evil you did. Jeffrey Dahmer, in an interview with Stone Phillips, said this: I always believed the theory of evolution is truth, that we all just came from the slime. When we die, that was it. There's nothing. He asked this question in that interview: if a person doesn't think there is a God to be accountable to, then what's the point in modifying your behavior to be kept within acceptable ranges? There's lots of data that shows the Christian world view not only actually explains morality, unlike atheism, but is also far better at causing a society to prosper and better benefit all citizens of the society, morally speaking, than atheist societies. All we have to do is look back at the last century and the state-promoted atheistic governments to demonstrate that. Soviet Union, China, North Korea, Vietnam, Cambodia, Cuba, and even Nazi Germany can be included as examples. The benefits we naturally enjoy today, especially in Western society, has its roots firmly planted in the Christian worldview, and the atheist today ends up borrowing from the Christian worldview to hold these positions on morality, because atheism holds no position on morality, and that is why Christianity is better explaining morality than atheism. If I had more time, I would get into studies that show Christianity is more likely to motivate humanity to act better and give examples of how people's behavior changes for the better or worse, depending on if they converted to Christianity or abandoned the Christian upbringing that they had. But that's all the time that I have, and that is my opening. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thanks, Matt. Pretty close to 5 minutes. Now we'll go to the atheist side, and I don't know which Piper or Billy, which one of you are going to go first? Have you guys decided?
It's me.
Okay, great. Piper, whenever you're ready, I will start your time.
Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you to our opponents for participating. Thank you to the mods. Thank you to my partner Billy, and thanks to all of you who have turned up to watch the debate. I'll be opening by making the case that Christianity does not better explain morality than atheism by showing that the relevant considerations in moral philosophy will be accounted for by one of the atheistically acceptable views in the mainstream of the field, and thus Christian doctrine is irrelevant to whatever the proper explanation of morality turns out to be. I'll be interpreting explaining morality as providing a meta-ethical view that accounts for the relevant considerations, that is, providing a satisfactory account of moral concepts, experience, and semantics. For the sake of this discussion, I'll restrict the views under consideration to meta-ethical views on which there are moral facts, that is, moral propositions such as good people don't rape, that are true. The atheistically acceptable views in mainstream meta-ethics that allow for the existence of moral facts are as follows. Non-naturalist realism. On this view, there are moral features of the world in virtue of which statements like good people don't rape are true. These features cannot be identified with or conceptually reduced to features of the natural world, that is, features of the world that can be studied by the natural or social sciences. The main advantages of this view are that it preserves the intuition that statements like good people don't rape are true regardless of the opinion of cultures or individuals, and that it accounts well for the fact that the natural and social sciences are mainly descriptive, whereas moral facts are presumably prescriptive. The main disadvantage is that it accounts less well than other views for the supervenience of the moral and the natural, meaning that we humans come to moral judgments by observing affairs in the natural world. E.g., we see children kicking a cat and judge it to be wrong. Naturalist realism. On this view, there are features of the world that can be studied by the natural and social sciences, that have moral value and are thus that in virtue of which statements like good people don't rape are true. The main advantages of this view are that it accounts exceedingly well for the supervenience of the moral and the natural, and like non-naturalism, preserves intuitions about the independence of the moral facts from individual and cultural opinion. Its main disadvantage is that it will face a challenge in making sense out of the primarily descriptive rather than prescriptive nature of the natural and social sciences. Moral relativism. On this view, statements like good people don't rape are true in virtue of either the opinions of individuals or their cultures. The advantages of this view are that it preserves the intuition that assumptions about the superiority of one culture to another are usually based in hubris rather than fact, and it respects the desire of most metaphysicians to have desert ontologies, meaning the desire to keep weird entities like moral features of the world out of your theory of what exists, if possible. The main disadvantage is obviously that it doesn't preserve the intuition that moral facts are independent of cultural and individual opinion. Which view you take will entirely depend on how best to manage the trade-off between the advantages and disadvantages of each of these views. Notice that the main considerations in which view of moral facts to take have nothing to do with God's existence. They are all individually and jointly manageable under the presumption that there is no such being as God. This means that the proposition that Christianity explains morality better than atheism is simply false, where explain is taken to mean give an adequate philosophical account of the relevant considerations. Yeah, so that's my opening statement.
Great. Thank you very much, Piper. And now we will go to Billy for his 5-minute opening. Billy, are you ready to go?
Yeah.
Okay, great. When you start, I will start the time.
Okay, cool. So thank you all for coming and for John and Matt for agreeing to participate in the debate. You heard Piper just argue that atheism can accommodate various forms of morality, including objective and subjective morality. I'm going to argue that theism, and by default Christianity, actually provides a weaker explanation of morality than atheism. This is due to theism falling prey to the Euthyphro dilemma. And another concern is that seemingly on a view that God is required for morality, actions are not good and evil in and of themselves, a view that seems deeply implausible, especially for moral realists. So I'll tackle these two concerns as separate objections, although they're similar in many respects. So broadly speaking, the Euthyphro asks the question, does God say something is good because it is good, or is something good because God says it? The former option leads to goodness being external to God, and therefore God becomes superfluous in deciding whether something is moral or not. If, on the other hand, one takes the second form, then something is good because God says it's good, and it seems that good can just be anything that God says. Thus, morality becomes arbitrary. If God commands people to torture other people, then that action is good. If there are no moral constraints on what God can command, then he can presumably command anything. Thus, morality becomes arbitrary. So that's the euthyphro in a nutshell. One response that's very common among theists is to say that the dilemma is a false one. They will insist that it is God's nature that is good, and that goodness is grounded in God's unchanging, loving nature. Therefore, God is not arbitrarily commanding certain actions, right and wrong, yet he's also not appealing to anything outside of himself either. He's appealing to his own nature, which is the good. This seemingly makes both horns of the dichotomy flawed, and thus appealing to God's nature as the source of goodness evades the externality of the first horn, as well as the arbitrariness of the second. This option, I'm going to argue, only manages to kick the can down the road, but not nearly far enough. In his 2012 paper called Can God's Goodness Save the Divine Command Theory from Euthyphro, philosopher Jeremy Coons argues that this only manages to open up a second-order Euthyphro at the level of God's nature. Namely, is an action conforming to God's nature because it is good, or is an action good because it conforms to God's nature? Saying God's nature is good, and I quote, debars you from pointing to any feature in virtue of which God is good. This is because if you say that God's nature is good because it is loving, the implication is that loving is good, and that God's nature is good in virtue of having these particular traits, thus making the trait loving good independent of God. The only other alternative, it seems, is that one has to say that lovingness is goodness. Lovingness is good because God has it as part of his nature. And this means that if God had hatred as part of his nature, then that would be good. We run into the same arbitrariness objection that was trying to be avoided earlier. There's more to say on this, but I'm sure in the interest of time, we'll get onto that later. I said that if God is the standard of morality, then it can't be that an action is wrong in and of itself. Why I say this is because if you suppose that God is the standard of the good, then that means that some fact about God, his nature, or his will makes an action right or wrong. You are thus barred from saying that an action, say killing a baby, is wrong in and of itself, because presumably, if God did not exist, then there would be no standard of morality. Thus, you can't then say that in a world without God, a certain action is right or wrong. So it seems deeply implausible that the action, say torturing a baby, is the moral value of that depends solely on whether some external fact about God is true. Right? It seems that, especially for moral realists, that there's something intrinsically wrong about torturing a baby that makes it right or wrong. I'm not the first to point this out, mind you. Wes Morriston, Alex Malpass, and Jeremy Coons have all raised this objection. This is not, mind you, a logical problem for the theist who holds such a moral view. There's no contradiction entailed in the view I espouse, but I think most would agree that if there are some actions that are good and evil, it would be in virtue of some fact about the particular actions, not in some external fact about an agent outside of those particular actions. And we can get into all of these sort of objections and counter objections further on in the discussion. Thanks all for listening. Appreciate it.
Okay, great. Thanks, Billy. Appreciate that. Okay, so that's the openings. Now we're going to go to rebuttals. My understanding is it's a 5-minute rebuttal for each team. So unless I'm wrong about that, please speak up. If that's the case, then we'll have a 5-minute rebuttal for Matt and John. And I'm not sure how you guys want to handle the time for your team.
John, would you like to kind of, start out first, and we kind of go about 2.5 minutes or so, and then I'll kind of give some thoughts afterwards. Is that how you want to do that?
Yeah, if you want me to go first, Matt, I suppose I can. Let me see some of the notes I took here. Piper, you said in your opening, good people don't rape are true. So my question to you is, if a person doesn't rape, but he
Rebuttal.
murdered,
Just the rebuttal part, right? We're not doing questions now, right? just the rebuttal.
Correct.
Okay. So if it is the case that good people don't rape is true, then the question becomes, but he doesn't rape, but he murders. Then we see that no, we cannot call him a good person. And just because he doesn't rape but murders, cannot qualify him as a good person. Therefore, there is, as the Bible says in my opening, there is no one good but God alone, and that only one violation of a law or code does not make them, makes them bad, in other words. So, in other words, there are no good people, even according to that. So, even that understanding of good people is flawed in the sense that uh, even the preponderance of good action performed, quote unquote, does not establish a one to be good. We must call him a lawbreaker because he's murdered. We must call him evil, immoral, unrighteous, and so that would be my objection to that. Also, you said moral facts are not independent of human opinion. Well, then it seems to me that that what happens is the subjectivity is changed. We human beings are not immutable. Therefore, one opinion today could be a different opinion tomorrow. And so I don't know how, in a sense, I know you believe in moral facts, but you consider them subjective. But if they, how reliable are they? To me, as I said, God is immutable, and therefore we can trust it. Also, human beings are liars, and therefore we cannot trust um, human beings as we can trust God. I don't know how much time I took, Matt, but why don't you take it from here?
Okay, I just want to remind everybody that the title of this debate is Can Christianity does Christianity better explain morality than atheism? Now, what Piper talked about in the beginning here is what philosophers have to say that maybe just happen to be atheists. But that doesn't mean atheism has explained anything about morality. In fact, it hasn't, because I'll remind everybody the Stanford Encyclopedia philosophy defines atheism as a view that there are no gods. American Atheist Inc. defines atheism as the lack of belief in gods. So just because an atheist happens to offer some explanation for morality doesn't entail atheism itself offered that explanation. Billy said something, he brought up the Euthyphro dilemma. Well, I think it's more of a problem for the atheist. Is it good because humans say it's good, or is there something outside of humans that establish it as good? Well, obviously, if the atheist is leaning toward the arbitrariness of humans, then that's more of a problem than what John Lee demonstrated in the opening, how God can be trustworthy, how he doesn't change. So even if you want to say God is arbitrary, we still don't have to worry about God changing his mind on this because of who he is, who his nature is. So the atheist is just going to have to concede that if it's arbitrary to the human, then that's a bigger problem than the Christians. Furthermore, if it's not arbitrary, then that means there's an outside goodness standard of good. How does atheism answer what that is? The point is, it can't answer what that is because all atheism is a belief that there are no gods or the lack of belief in gods or gods. So I don't think that they've done anything here in their opening to show how atheism in and of itself can explain anything without having to borrow ideas from even philosophical ideas that were influenced previously by the Christian worldview or theism in and of itself. How much time we got?
You have 30 seconds left if you'd like to say anything
John
else.
Lee, would you like to say anything else?
No, I think we covered it, Matt. I think we're good, Jason.
Okay. Okay, great. That concludes the Matt and John's rebuttal. Let me get my time sets. Hold on. Okay, so now we'll go to Billy and Piper's 5-minute rebuttal. I don't know how you guys want to handle the time.
Do you want me to say a few quick things first, Billy?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Because we can structure it, and like if you want an X amount of time, then Jason can tell you when it gets
Yeah.
close to it. So Whatever you
Yeah.
guys need.
I don't want to take up any more than about half. So if I go over, just
Okay.
tell me.
Okay, when it hits 2.5, then I will give a shout out.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
Okay.
Yeah. So you know, the purpose of a rebuttal in a debate is to respond to the opening statement. So I'm not going to be responding to anything they just said. So John Lee's opening was basically, a good statement of, his preferred version of the Christian theological story. But the point of the debate proposition is to compare views against theoretical virtues, which is the better explanation. That's what that means. And John didn't do any of that. He just sort of gave us his view. Okay, great. That's his view. But why should we think it does better, in terms of explanatory virtues against the other view, right? That's completely unanswered. Matt both begged the question and brought up some irrelevant stuff. So he said something like, well, if you don't have a standard like the standard that Christianity has, then you don't then your moral theory, your meta ethic will be wanting or something like that. And that's just begging the question. Of course, atheists don't accept that you need to have a standard like Christianity has. They will have their own view of what the standard should be, as I outlined in my opening. He also brought up that atheism is just like one proposition that doesn't tell you about which moral view you should accept. That's sort of irrelevant. So the methodology I borrowed for my statement was from Graham Oppy, where he takes what he considers to be the best theistic theory of the world and the best atheistic theory of the world, which he construes as naturalism, and he compares them in terms of explanatory virtue. So obviously, the debate proposition is supposed to be read as, right, is an atheistically acceptable view of meta-ethics, right, inferior to a Christian view of meta-ethics in terms of explanatory virtue, right? So that stuff about, atheism not being able to tell you about morality is just like irrelevant. Yeah.
All right, Billy, you've got about 2 minutes and 50 seconds.
Okay, yeah, so there's a few things that I wanted to address. So I guess there were quite a few claims made in the opening that were not, at least to my knowledge, backed up. So I want an argument for the claim that atheism can't answer the question as to what is moral. I think that was a claim that was made. One of them said that morality is grounded in the nature of God. This seems to run afoul of Koons's objection, so I'd want a response to how they get out of that. They said that we can't understand love without God. I think they said that. So if I'm mistaken, I apologize. I want an argument for that. Why we can't understand love without God? If they did say that, I think Matt said atheist morality is only practical, and he quoted some atheist, but atheists have different views. So I want an argument as to why atheist morality, if it does exist, why it has to be only practical. Most moral realists who are atheists are going to reject this. They said that Christianity motivates action, and presumably the implied implication for that is that atheist morality doesn't motivate action. And I think they hinted that the reason that Christianity motivates action is because there's some sort of eternal punishment. Now, that's definitely a motivation, right? I think most people are going to argue that, they don't want to be eternally punished. But notice that you can still do an action, that you think is wrong, because you're motivated to avoid punishment, right? You might be peer pressured into bullying a child at school, right? Because you're motivated to do the wrong thing. So I'm not doubting that people who are Christians are definitely motivated towards action, but that has no resemblance as to whether the action is good or not. And it seems like if that's the reason that Christianity motivates action, then an atheist view can say that they have the police and they can motivate action. So yeah, I don't really understand what that's getting at either. And it doesn't. And they said that Christianity can explain why you should love your neighbor. I just want a little bit more of an explanation as that. Like, if I say, God says you should love your neighbor, right? And that might be true, but that doesn't explain why you should love your neighbor, because that would be a naturalistic fallacy. So, yeah, I think that's all I have to say.
Okay. That concludes the rebuttals. Now I believe we're going to go into 15-minute cross examinations. So, John and Matt, I believe you go first to cross examine Piper and Billy. And again, you control the 15 minutes, so you can reclaim your time on your questions. And when you are ready to go, I will start the time.
Did you want to go first, Matt?
Yeah, I could ask a couple questions and then maybe you could jump in. First question, do you agree with the definition of atheism as laid out by the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy?
Yeah.
The belief that there are no gods. Okay, so
Yeah.
the title of our debate was, does Christianity offer a better explanation than atheism? Now, how does the belief that there are no gods offer any explanation at all?
Yeah. So as I said in the opening and in my response to you on this point specifically, the debate proposition should be interpreted as Christianity versus atheistically acceptable views of metaethics. So views of metaethics that atheists can have.
Okay, well, we didn't agree to that. We didn't talk about that, so I don't think we can change that now.
It's
The
not a
second,
change.
the second question is, see, where was it? His, if there, so one of you said, I think it's Billy. There's no set standard on morality. Um, I guess from your position. So, how is it that if there's no set standard of morality, can atheism offer any standard at all, since it's just a belief that there are no gods or a lack of belief in gods?
I don't think I ever said that there's no set standard of morality under atheism. I don't think I ever said that.
You
If I
said
did,
one, either you or Piper said there's no set standard of.
No, I think you're misremembering something I said. What I said was your argument was question begging because you said, well, if atheists don't have a moral standard like the moral standard that Christianity has, then their view must not be right. The point there is that atheists can have a different view and will have a different view of moral standards than
Okay.
Christians do.
Okay, but that's not what atheism doesn't offer, that because all atheism is a belief that there are no God or gods, right?
Yeah, I
So it's
already
not like
responded to that.
if you so you could be a moral error theorist and just not believe morality exists at all, correct?
That has nothing to do with the debate. We're talking about moral
That's a yes
facts.
or no. Can you or can you not? Because I
It's
know
just an
atheists.
irrelevant question.
It's a yes or no question.
Yes,
The
but it's
answer is
irrelevant.
yes. You can be a moral error theorist and just not believe morality exists at all under atheism. So atheism in and of itself cannot explain anything about morality. John, you
you
can
can
take.
be a moral error theorist and be a
Okay.
Christian as well.
Okay. John Lee's taking over. Go ahead.
Okay, so Piper, you had stated in your opening about good people. I'd like to examine that a little bit. What establishes a good person to you?
To me, what establishes a good person is if your sort of value goals in life are directed towards the realization of human freedom, right? That's my view. Other
Okay.
atheists will have different views.
Okay. So then the question is, you talked about rape. Good people don't rape, are true, is what you said. So the question is, if a person does not rape but murders, is he a good person?
Yeah, so no. What I said
Okay.
clearly
Well,
should be read as the statement that if someone is a good person, they don't rape. Not if they
okay.
don't rape, they are a good person.
So
Can
you
I just
agree?
add something
You
to that?
No, you cannot. And so because this is not your statement, it's Piper's statement. That's the only reason, Billy. Now, with respects to um the example that I gave you, if a person murders, uh doesn't rape, Is the person good? It's a simple question. Yes or no?
If the person murders and doesn't rape, are they a good person? No.
Right. And so we do see that your statement, good people don't rape, are true is false because that person is not a good person. And to establish a good person, as I explained in my opening, if you violate one statute, one code of the law, you are immoral. So I have a question for you, Piper. If a person does 10,000 good actions, right, quote unquote good, and murders, sexually abuses one child and murders them, can we ever say that this person's good?
Not on
Ever?
my view and most atheist views, no.
Okay. So then you agree that that this person we cannot call good, we cannot call moral, we cannot call law abider, we cannot call, in a biblical sense, righteous.
I don't know about biblical stuff, but yeah, I wouldn't call
Okay.
that person a good person.
Right. So then can we ever call such a person good?
Um, I mean, if if someone does a horrendous act and then makes genuine efforts at reform and is successful, you might say that post that act they're a good person.
Okay. So somehow it's the case that um some sort of action sort of just cleanses that individual from being good, I mean from being evil to good.
I don't know how you got that from what I said.
Well, you said that a person can be good after having murdered.
Yeah, if they take, you know, actions that make them a better person.
That's what I just said.
You
And
said
so
something
you're
about cleanse. I don't know what that has to do with anything.
okay. Well, how about erases the label of evil
Well, it
or
doesn't erase
lawbreaker?
the label of evil, right? Because when they did the action, before they were reformed, we still
Can
call them evil.
can the person ever be labeled a law abider?
I don't know why you're asking me to tell you about answers to biblical
No, it's
categories. I
the
don't get it.
word. Yeah, this is not a biblical question. This is a moral question. Can the person ever be declared moral or good?
Yeah, I already answered that. If they reform themselves.
Right. And so you have a system by which a person reforms themselves and they become we society can be considered good. How about Hitler? Can we ever in a world where he does a bunch of maybe feeds old ladies or something in the evening time after Holocaust of 6 million people, can he be ever declared good in your world view?
Yeah, I mean, I think something like that is really hard to come back from, so it's unlikely. But I mean, I think there's potential for even people like that to become better people.
Right. And so better than worse could still be bad, right?
Sure.
And so do you think good is understood as without flaw?
No.
Okay, so then almost good,
What? I
basically
don't.
good,
In respect to what? I don't get the
in
question.
respect to your understanding of good. I just don't see how you can call anyone, I don't see how a worldview that does not entail God can characterize anyone as good. In fact, the Bible explicitly says there is no one good but God alone. But you don't
Well, you
believe in
were
God.
supposed to make that case in your opening, and you didn't, right? So I don't know
I actually
how you
mentioned
could
it.
see
Mark
things matters.
10:18. Yeah, I mentioned Mark 10:18 in my opening in case you weren't taking notes.
Well, for the reasons I stated in my rebuttal to you, that's not making the case like you were supposed to make, right?
Right. And so what I'm trying to go by is your statement, good people, right? I don't believe good people exist. And the arguments that you provided does
Is
not
wait a second, is God a person?
good
Well,
humans,
Piper,
right?
you're not asking the questions now, Piper. John is.
Right. And so I don't believe that good people in terms of good human people exist.
Okay, good human people, God.
Yeah. And God is not people, by the way. But in any
So
case,
he's not personal, God.
so once
Piper
again, we're
asking the
talking about human beings here. Okay? God does not sin, therefore he is good, even if he's a person. And so God is not a human being that he should lie,
Do you
right?
have a question?
So God is not a liar. Well, I'm just responding to your comment about God. You want to invoke God, we can do that. But the question once again is about good. And I still have not understood what you even mean by good, other than their label of just saying, well, generally he's good, and it seems
Well, I laid out
purely you know, arbitrary at this point. There's no standard by which to establish a good person or
I
not a
laid
good
out
person.
multiple of those standards that are atheistically acceptable in my opening, right? So your failure to hear any of that is not my problem.
I would actually like to follow up on what John
Sure.
Lee said, asking Billy, because Billy was using the Euthyphro dilemma, and he was implying that arbitrariness is a bad thing. Billy, is it your claim that having some sort of moral standard that's arbitrary is bad?
My claim is that it would be bad, presumably from a Christian view, yeah, because they want to say that morality isn't arbitrary.
Okay, so let's just say that John Lee and I just say, yeah, it's arbitrary. God just arbitrarily decides murder is wrong. But because of what John laid out in his opening, God isn't going to change. We don't have to worry about God then changing later and saying murder is okay. Um, and yet, in your worldview or under your position, if morality is dependent upon the human, then aren't you the one that's suffering worse from arbitrariness than we are?
No. Why would we be?
Obviously, you would be, because what you're saying here is, and let me ask you it this way, Billy: is it
Hmm.
good because humans say it's good, or is there an outside standard that humans use to say it's good?
Depends on your view.
I'm asking you, what is your view?
What's my personal view?
Is it good because humans say it's good, or is there an outside standard that shows it's good?
Well, I'm a moral subjectivist personally, so I would say that morality is subjective. But I
So
could
it's
be mistaken.
good.
I could be
It's
mistaken. There are many atheists who are moral
good
realists who would
because
take the second
humans.
option.
So under your view, it's just good because humans say it's good. Now, isn't that extreme arbitrariness 101? I mean, if you're trying to avoid arbitrariness and you think arbitrariness is wrong, then you
Yep.
hold a position that is ultimately arbitrary because it's just dependent upon an individual human's opinion, right?
I mean, that's my view, but you're trying to make the case that.
Thank you.
uh,
John Lee, do you have any more questions?
Uh, yeah, I do. So let's see here. I guess about the Euthyphro dilemma, Billy. Um, how is talking about theism a demonstration? How is the criticism of theism a demonstration that atheism is better?
Yeah, so if I can show that theism and by default Christianity runs into either contradictions or extremely unintuitive views, and atheist morality doesn't, then that would be
Okay.
um, reasons to think that atheist morality is better than Christianity.
So you're making a comparison of exactly what here?
Christian views of morality and atheist views of morality.
Yeah, and what exactly is being compared here?
Oh shit! Sorry, one sec.
How does one make uh, theism, I mean atheism, superior to theism, or a better explanation? It seems to
Well,
me
yeah,
that
I mean,
you spent some time just being critical of theism, but I really didn't
mhm.
see anything to give us a comparative analysis of being better. Couldn't it be the case that if theism is bad, maybe atheism is worse, and therefore by default theism is better because atheism is worse?
Yeah, that could be true. You'd have to make that
Okay.
case, but yeah.
And so I'm just saying, Billy, do you think that you provided a good explanation as to why atheism is a better explanation of how a belief that there is no God provide some sort of basis by which to explain morality in a better way.
No, I didn't. I think Piper did.
Okay. Well, it just so happens to be that you brought up the Euthyphro, and that's why I'm
Mm-hmm.
asking you, sir. Your argument is to say that theism boohoo. And you said
Yeah,
that
that's right.
also, and also you said I need an argument for this. I need an argument for this. I need an argument
Mm-hmm.
for that. I think you said about 4 or 5 things. So
Yeah,
what
that's
is the
right.
what is the argument that you have that atheism is a better explanation than theism?
Yeah, okay. I mean, I don't have it in like premises of conclusion, but I could say something like, atheists can have a view in which morality is not arbitrary, and Christianity, it seems like the view would be arbitrary.
Not
And
arbitrary. You're subjectivist.
That's the time.
no,
Okay.
I'm a subjectivist, but I'm saying that an atheist can have a view that morality isn't arbitrary.
So
Like
basically, you have nothing.
Alistair Norcross, Wes Morriston, Scott Berman, they're all moral realists. Then they don't think morality is arbitrary. So,
So you have nothing.
Okay, that's it.
what?
No more
Okay.
questions. No more questions by you guys. That's the 15 minutes. So, okay, so let's go to Piper and Billy. On your first word, whoever wants to go first, I'll start your 15 minutes, your
Can
cross
I just?
examination. And
Yeah, you want to
wait,
ask them about the coon stuff, Billy?
before you
Well, I.
start, wait a minute. Before you start,
Oh, sorry.
I just want to remind you this is a cross examination, so you can reclaim your time.
Yeah,
You just have to reclaim it. So, okay, go ahead.
cool. You want to
I.
ask them about the coon stuff?
I'm your Huckleberry.
John's your Huckleberry. I'm your Huckleberry as well.
I haven't started the time yet, so whenever you guys start, I'll start your time.
I think Billy is like needs to straighten
You
something
there?
out.
Are you there, Billy? Billy. Billy, 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 Billy.
Well,
I mean, I
maybe
can start. I can start while we wait for Billy.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. So the first question I'll ask is, what would you say to like any one of the atheistically acceptable views that I provided in the
Oh
opening?
shit! Did
Well,
I cut
actually,
out?
oh yeah, you did cut out.
Oh, sorry. Oh shit! My internet's down. I had to switch to data. Um.
Yeah.
Sorry. Oh shit! All my
I
notes are gone.
mean,
Oh,
I'll tell you
hold
what,
on.
Hey,
Jason.
Jason, could you
We could
pause the
reset. No, you could just
Jason? Can you
reset
pause
from
the
the
time
beginning.
real quick, and then we'll let well, if John and them are okay, let's reset. Billy, let us know when your internet is up.
Well, I'm using data. That's fine. I don't have my notes, but I think I can go without. I wanted to ask John, when Piper said that good people don't rape, you seem to suggest that that was false because you can have a bad person who doesn't rape, but they do murder someone, right? And you seem to be implying that Piper made a mistake when he said good people don't rape. But do you think the condition "don't rape" is a necessary condition or a sufficient condition?
I don't understand your question.
Well, if I say that a square has 4 sides, right? Well, a trapezium also has 4 sides, but it's not a square, right? So when I
Right.
say a square has 4 sides, presumably it's a necessary condition that a square has 4 sides, but it's not sufficient, right? So
Mm.
it's not sufficient that a shape has 4 sides, that it's a square, but it is necessary. So presumably the charitable interpretation is that when Piper said good people don't rape, is that it's a necessary condition, not a sufficient condition. So what do you think that Piper was trying to say? Necessary or sufficient condition?
Well, I mean, I think Piper was trying to say necessary.
Why think that?
Well, then
Oh,
how
sorry,
are you? Yeah. So how are you going to?
unnecessary. Yeah. So that's fine, right? So it's true then. If that's a necessary condition, that doesn't mean that if you're you
Well,
can be a bad person and not rape. That
right.
so right.
So I asked the question, right? If a person murders, right, does not rape, what? So in other words, I was trying to find the definition of a good person. In other words, trying to find out the four sides that you're talking about. From what I was listening to, sometimes it could be four sides, but if you change this around a little bit, then we can do that. And it just didn't seem like a standard by which is consistent. It certainly seems to be flexible in a way that it could be
What's
one and
inconsistent?
then be
I'm sorry.
another.
Wait. I'm sorry. This is my cross exam. So what's inconsistent about that?
The thing that's inconsistent is that it is it seems to be moving, a moving target, so to speak. In other words,
Wait. That's not inconsistency.
yeah, it's exactly inconsistent. If it's one thing
What?
one time and something
I
else another
understand.
time.
No. Piper never said that. Look, anyway, I think
Yeah,
I made my
Piper did
point.
say
I'm going to
that.
move on. I'm going
Piper
to
did
move
say
on.
that.
No, okay, look, I don't think she did, but okay, I'm going to move on. Sorry, Piper, did you want to say something or not?
No, I mean, I'll let you continue with what you're doing.
Yeah, so I just have an argument here. So it's, and I just want to know which premise you deny. So premise one, if God is necessary for morality, then killing a baby would not be wrong in and of itself. Premise two, God is necessary for morality, and then conclusion, killing a baby would not be wrong in and of itself. So I'm just wondering which premise you deny, or if you accept the argument.
Yeah, killing a baby is not immoral in and of itself. So I certainly agree with
Oh, okay.
that. But I don't understand your P and Q relation, what
Okay.
you're trying to do here.
Well, then you don't understand modus ponens.
I do understand modus
It,
ponens. So what if God what?
so yeah, so the argument is if God is necessary for morality, then killing baby will not be wrong in and of itself. God is necessary for morality, then killing baby will not be
Yeah,
wrong in and of itself.
I reject the first premise outright. I mean,
Oh, okay. So
you have no
then
justification for that first
okay, no,
premise.
I do have justification. I do have. So you're rejecting P1, which is if
That's
God is
correct.
necessary for morality, then killing a
Hmm.
baby would not be wrong in and of itself. So
That's correct.
presumably you're saying in a world where God doesn't exist, killing a baby would still be wrong, right?
I don't think it's even sequitur, your P and Q relation.
No, what? Uh,
Yeah, I don't think it's
What do you?
sequitur.
What?
What do you mean it's
I,
separate?
what? I
Doesn't
don't
follow.
understand.
Yeah, I don't think it
What?
follows.
Well, so it has to
Yeah, of course
follow
you don't
because
think it
it's literally just
follows because
modus ponens.
Right.
you're denying premise one, so of course you don't
I
think
deny
it
it. Yeah, I
follows, right?
reject it. In fact, I just don't just reject it. I deny it.
Yeah, and I'm trying to back up the first premise. So just let me explain. So if you're denying premise one, you think it's not the case that if God is necessary for morality, then killing a baby would not be wrong in and of itself, right? So presumably, in a world where God doesn't exist, killing a baby would still
Wait.
be
You say
wrong.
you
John,
wait,
this is
wait,
not
wait.
your time. Don't wait.
I changed the wording. He said not
Just
on the
Yeah,
second part of
yeah,
the
I'm
queue.
denying the first premise. So I'm saying it's not the case that if God is necessary for morality, then killing a baby would not be wrong in and of itself.
No, that's a false
I said the
dichotomy.
premise like 3 times, John.
Yeah,
wait. How
I heard
did you
you.
just
Can
say
I
that the
reclaim some
premise?
time here because this is like wasting a lot of time. So
Yeah.
I'm trying to back up the
Well,
first premise.
wait a second, Billy. This is supposed to be question answer, not you making an argument. So I don't know why you're trying to reclaim time. If you want to make an argument, that's your time.
Okay,
If
in
you,
virtue of
Yeah,
what
I'm
does
trying
John
to make
deny
an
to the first
argument.
Bill,
premise?
Look,
Billy's
I'm
argument is that the
Hey, quick,
entailment
quick,
of my
pause,
look,
quick,
wait.
rejection.
pause. Jason, do you mind pausing the time? We're gonna
Yep.
reset the time back by about 40 seconds. This is a period of time for them to ask questions, but if they choose to make an argument, they are allowed to do it. We're all in agreement that if people asking questions can reclaim their time, correct?
well,
Sure.
Yeah,
the
that's
problem
right.
was James that
Yeah,
what
we
Billy.
were in agreement to that, so I don't know why
Yeah,
Matt's
Well,
we're
insinuating
agreeing
you're
on
let
going.
me
that.
let me
No,
just
wait.
clarify something. Let me clarify something. What Billy was doing is offering some sort of syllogism, and he was trying to explain it to John, but then he was wanting to reclaim time, and I don't think that that's really part of the agreement of a question section.
Well,
You to make an argument, and then if John's not clear on the argument, you start demanding your time to be
wait a
reclaimed.
minute. Wait a minute. Let's just be clear. This is a 15-minute cross-examination. It's Billy and Piper's time. If they want to make a syllogism during their time, they can do that. Now, if they ask John a question and well, just wait a second, and they don't let John answer the question, then John needs to have the opportunity to answer the question. But if John goes on, they can just say, reclaim my time, and it's their time. So this is their time.
Okay, so let me get this right here. It's not that Billy is asking for his time to be put back on the clock. He just wants to step away from that, right?
Look,
What? Yeah.
Billy can do what he wants with his time.
Yeah, but what Billy would, I think that they added
It's
40
the
seconds,
moderator's
and
decision.
I'm
If
just
they don't think what I'm doing is fair, then it's up to
well,
them, I suppose.
Yeah,
look,
Matt, can you stop arguing with the mods and let this get on, please?
hold on. It was just
Okay.
confusing that you were making a syllogism argument in a question section and then demanding
Matt,
to claim your time. But we can move on.
Matt, hang on. And the question time, these guys could just make an argument and not ask you any questions. That would be to their deficit.
Oh, I
But
agree.
they're
I agree,
allowed to
Jay.
do that.
I agree.
Talking about the 50. He's talking about
I,
the 40 seconds,
I
James.
agree
So
wholeheartedly with what you're
now
saying.
the
I'm
40
just
seconds.
saying, don't make an argument, and then if John's not really sure what the argument is, then demand 40 seconds. That's your fault for.
No. I added that was my call to add 40 seconds
Okay, fair
because
enough.
it started to fall apart and people started to talk. So
Okay,
that's why they got the 40 seconds, guys. All right, we can go again, Jason, Billy, and Piper when you guys are ready. If everybody's ready, let's go.
Yep, on your
Yeah,
guys' note. Go ahead. Yeah.
Just to let you know,
yeah.
Billy, I did understand your PFP than Q the first time.
Okay, thanks. So the point is that if you say that God is necessary for morality, then the only reason an action would be right or wrong is if God exists, right? So if God doesn't exist, then torturing a baby would not be wrong. It can't be wrong because there is no God, right? So you then can't say that torturing a baby is wrong in and of itself. So where did I go wrong in my line of
Okay,
reasoning?
so you said if God is necessary, then chocolate ice cream is good. So if I say no, then you say if God is
Wait,
necessary,
what?
then chocolate ice cream is not good, right? This is what you're trying to argue, right? It
But
doesn't follow in the inverse. There's no inverse relationship in what you're trying to ask.
no inverse. I don't understand. There's no inverse. Look, I'm just asking
Because
where I went wrong.
if you asked me the other way around, I would deny that too. So there's two denials in both inverses. It doesn't
What?
it doesn't
I don't know what you
follow.
mean by
John,
inverse.
where did I go wrong in my line of reasoning? That was the question. You didn't answer that.
I could answer that question.
Do you want to go for it, Matt, or do you want to
Yeah,
ask me
his whole
better?
premise is talking about God's existence. The problem is the debate is, does Christianity offer a better explanation than atheism? So Christianity is already presupposing the existence of
No,
God.
no,
So
no.
it's not that we have
Wait,
to
wait. Hold on a second.
demonstrate.
Hold on a
No,
second.
that's not what's
So
going
look,
on, Matt.
I'm not trying to
View.
demonstrate that God doesn't exist or God exists. I'm saying if God doesn't exist, right, then torturing a baby would not be wrong in and of itself, right? That's what you're committed to saying, that torturing a baby is not wrong in and of itself, right? You can't say that because in a world where God doesn't exist, right, then torturing a baby wouldn't be wrong in and of itself because God is necessary for morality.
I think you changed it to killing a baby to torturing a baby now.
It doesn't matter, John. The point is,
It does matter.
okay, look, where did I go wrong in my line of reasoning?
I just
You
told
still
you,
haven't
Billy.
answered the
I
question.
told you. Okay, if you're asking that question, I'll answer it for you. Hopefully, I'll have the time to
Thank you.
explain. You said if God is necessary, right, then torture a baby is not wrong. And I said I reject that premise. Then you said, okay,
It was
then
not
if
inherent.
Wait,
Wait, hold on, John.
wait, wait,
John.
wait, wait,
John.
wait.
It was
Stop.
not.
Look,
The premise was if God is necessary for morality, then torturing a baby is not inherently wrong in itself. Something like that, right? It wasn't not wrong.
yeah. Yeah, that's right.
If God is necessary for morality, right, then torturing a baby is not wrong. It does not follow. It depends on what God
No, no, no.
says.
In and of itself. No, no, no.
Right. In and of
Look,
itself.
I'm granting that if Christianity is true, or if God exists, then torturing a baby would be wrong. I'm saying it's not wrong in and of itself. But look, we've wasted enough time on this. I'm going to move on. Do you deny? What's your response to Coons's argument that I laid out in the opening?
Yeah. What's my response to it?
Yeah.
I think I think he's trying to formulate a claim that that a can is being kicked down the road. I certainly don't see that. Where's this? It's just a claim that it's kicked down the road.
He
Why don't you
provided
show me how
reasoning
it's
Okay.
kicked
for
Well,
down the
that, so we're
road?
asking you to address the reasoning.
I just did. I just said the
No, all
claim
you
is
said
such.
was you disagree with the claim, right? We're asking you to address the reasoning for the claim.
I have to have. Listen, there is no reasoning for the claim provided. He just claimed that it's
Yes,
kicked
there
down the
was.
road.
Billy can repeat it for you if you're unclear.
Sure, sure. Let's repeat it.
all right. So you said, right, or one of you said in your opening that good is grounded in the nature of God. So Coons
Right.
then asked the question. Wait, you deny that?
I said right.
Oh, you okay? Good. So, um, okay. So then, Coons asked the question: is a trait good because it's a character trait of God, or is God's nature good because it has these particular character traits? So,
Yeah.
do you think
Goodness
that's a
is,
false dichotomy, or do you choose one option?
yeah, I don't consider a trait, so to speak, first of all.
You don't wait, trait. I'm just talking about like lovingness or kindness or sharing or compassion, things like that. So most people would say these are good, but you can replace it with whatever, right? Judging. So the question is, are these character traits good because God has them, or does God have them because they are good?
Uh, well, from my understanding, that question
Wait, can you just
is a
answer the
category
question? If
error.
you think it's
Yeah,
a false dichotomy, you can say it's a false dichotomy, but I just want like a clear
yeah,
answer.
yeah. I'll give you a clear answer. Could you just repeat it one more time? I'm sorry.
Yeah. So are certain character traits good because God has them? Or does God have them because they are good?
The character traits are good because God has them within His nature.
All right. Okay. So it seems like there can't be any reasons for God having those certain character traits he has, right? Because then those reasons would be grounds enough for them to be good. And that thus the reasons would be external to God. And um, God is superfluous to morality. Do you agree with what
The
I said?
reason, no, I don't agree that the reasons are external to God.
Wait, so
The
why is it the
reason
case
the
that God
reasons
has these
are
particular
the
traits
reasons
other
are
than
grounded in God. They're
Wait, John. So just to
substantiated by
get
God.
clear, just John. So did you say that the traits are good because God has them, or God has them because they're good?
Yeah, I said the traits are good because God has them.
Right. So then that's the first horn of the Euthyphro.
No, it's not.
Yeah, it is. So the
it is?
Euthyphro, first horn of the traditional Euthyphro, right, is it's good because God commands it, right? So this second order Euthyphro now is it's good. God has the traits because they're good, or the
The
traits are good
traits
because
are
God
good
has
The
because
them, or
God
traits are
God
good
has
because
has the
them.
God
traits
has them.
because
Yeah.
they're good, right?
So
So you're
how
just
is
taking
that?
the first horn of the second order Euthyphro, is the point.
Well, when you say the euthyphro is related to command, right? And so it
No,
well it is,
this is the second order Euthyphro, right? So the command language is going away. It's
right?
about the traits that God has. It's about
I
God's
understand.
nature, right? And so The point is that there's a second order Euthyphro at the level of God's nature.
No, there's not. I've dealt with coons before, right? Rob Speakers brought it up to me before, long time ago,
Okay, this is
and I've
irrelevant.
dealt with
So,
them. But
can
my
I?
point is this, yeah. The point is
No.
that
Wait,
what you're trying to say, the
I want
traits of
to,
God. Go ahead.
I want to ask a question because it's my time. So, you said, or one of you said that under atheism, there's no standard as to what is right or wrong. What's the best argument for that claim?
I'll give it to
Uh,
you. Atheism is
well,
just a belief that there are no gods or gods, or the lack of belief in God or gods. Atheism tells you zero about any kind of standard for morality. When you bring up someone like Kuntz, he's not arguing on behalf of atheism. He's making an argument, maybe happens to be an atheist, but atheism didn't tell him any of that. And the debate was about which offers a better explanation, Christianity or atheism.
Right. So it seems like you just conceded my point when you said that atheism doesn't tell you anything about morality. It could be true that under atheism there is an objective standard of right and wrong, right? You haven't shown that there's a contradiction in that view, or you haven't presented an argument as to why that view is
under
less
atheism,
reasonable
You
than a
gave us,
Christian view.
you just gave us the win to debate right now. You just conceded that.
exactly.
It's
What?
over, folks.
Look, the
You
point
just
is
conceded that
that
atheism offers no
Matt,
explanation.
shut up. Matt, be quiet.
no, no. I didn't say that. I said that atheism doesn't say anything about morality. It could be true that under atheism
Exactly.
there is an objective standard of right and wrong, and
It
you
could
haven't
be, or there
shown
is.
you you haven't. Well, it could be. I'd see no contradiction, right? You have to show that there's a
How
problem.
is it could be a
You
better
have to.
explanation? I know it's not my time to ask a question, but that
Yeah, it
your
Well,
isn't your time
response.
to ask a question, so let's stop that now.
the point, yeah. So I'm just asking you for the argument that let's just take Scott Berman's view of objective morality. Why is that view of objective morality any less satisfactory than the Christian view?
That view is not atheism.
Okay,
He's an
that was
atheist.
the 15 minutes. I'll let John answer if he wants, but that was the 15 minutes.
Yeah, so by saying that atheist view, objectively, subjectively, or whatever, is not a comment coming from atheism. Just because he happens to have a view that entails a belief there's no God, does not mean that it's coming from that belief. Whereas in Christianity, God, the belief in God, God is the grounding for the morality. That's the fundamental difference.
Okay.
Therefore, a better explanation.
Okay. Okay, great. That's the conclusion of the 15-minute cross-examination. Now I believe we're going to go to 3 minutes closing arguments. So I guess each person gets a 3-minute closing argument. And I believe that John and Matt go first because they went first in the beginning, and Billy and Piper get the final closing arguments. Correct?
Well, we
True.
actually did decide that sometimes it's flipped at the end. It doesn't matter to me.
Usually the people that go first. I thought that the other side goes last, but
I think Billy and Piper go first, Jason.
I don't know. Billy and Piper, do you have any perspective on this?
I'll leave it up. Well, I mean, Billy can say what he thinks, but
No,
I
I'll leave
don't.
it up to
I'm
you guys.
fine either way. Yeah, you guys.
Okay, do you want to go first, Billy and Piper? Are you okay with that?
Sure, we can do that.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, so
So it's
three.
one second of moderation. The question and answer period will be after this. We're going to
Yeah.
bring you up by when you click the hand raise option. We're going to bring up one at a time. You'll get to ask the question, and then we'll send you back down to the audience. You can go on now, Jason. Just wanted to let them know. So click the hand raise now. We won't bring anybody up yet, but we'll bring you up one at a time in that order.
Okay. Okay, either one of you, Billy and Piper, you go first. Then I'll start your 3-minute time.
Okay. You okay with me going first, Billy?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So The point of the debate was to contrast atheistically acceptable explanations of morality to Christian explanations of morality. Neither John nor Matt did that. Matt just begged the question on the Christian standard, and John just told us what his view was. There was no comparison of explanatory virtue, whereas in my opening statement, I provided a series of at least 3 atheistically acceptable views of metaethics and showed that the considerations over which view you want to take have to do with purely secular philosophical considerations and nothing to do with the existence of God or the truth of Christian doctrine. Neither of them replied to any of that, so everything I said stands as a reason to think that one of the atheistically acceptable views of metaethics will be sufficient to account for the relevant considerations, or will be the better view to choose over Christian metaethics.
Cool. Okay, yeah. So I want to reiterate that Piper laid out in her opening multiple views of morality that are compatible with atheism, and my opponents did not show why those views are less acceptable than the Christian view of morality. I also want to point out that Christianity is compatible with moral subjectivism, because the standard could be a subjective one, namely God's standard. And in fact, the Euthyphro seems to suggest that it could be. And it seems like the horn that they've taken is that it is the case. Yeah, I don't think they had a sufficient response to the argument of Kuhn's. It seems like they took the first horn. It seems like they then accepted, or they didn't have a rebuttal to the argument I gave that killing a baby would not be wrong in and of itself under Christianity if God is necessary for morality. I gave an argument for that, and then I supported the first premise, which John denied. Very briefly, that argument for the first premise is that if God is necessary for morality, then it's only because God exists that killing a baby is wrong. So if God doesn't exist, then killing a baby would not be wrong. And so you can't then say that killing a baby is wrong in and of itself. This seems to be a very unintuitive view, especially to moral realists. It seems that most people, including Alistair Norcross, Alex Malpass, Scott Berman, are all going to think that killing a baby is wrong in and of itself. And I think that most people in the audience, especially those who are moral realists, and Joe Schmidt has pointed this out as well on his YouTube channel, that it seems obvious that there are certain actions that are just wrong in and of themselves. They're intrinsically wrong. And he's a moral realist. So if you want to accept moral realism, it seems very unintuitive that killing baby is only wrong in virtue of some external fact about God. And I don't think they've sufficiently responded to that objection. But under atheism, right, that's Scott Berman's view. He's a Platonist, and he thinks there's standard right and wrong, and certain actions instantiate rightness or wrongness. He can say that killing a baby is wrong in and of itself because it instantiates. And I also want to point out that that's one view of morality. You can just say morality is irreducible. You might be a particularist, and that's all open to atheists, and they can say that. But it seems like the view that John and Matt were saying, they can't say that killing a baby would be wrong in and of itself. But yeah, thanks again, Piper, for being my partner for this debate, and thanks, John and Matt, for being our opponents, and thanks, James and Jason, for moderating. Cheers.
Okay. Just as a note, you guys have about a minute and a half left. If you have any other comments or you want to make, you have the opportunity
Oh,
to.
I'll say one last thing. So,
Yep.
this point that Matt brought up about well, atheism's just one proposition, so it has nothing to say about morality, right? That's an argument, right? That the natural interpretation of the debate proposition is atheistically acceptable views of metaethics, right? Because it's the debate about which explains morality better, so it can't just be the proposition that God doesn't exist. It has to be a meta ethic that includes that proposition, right? So that I just wanted to address how that's like irrelevant nonsense. Anyway, one last time.
Okay, great. Thank you, Billy and Piper. And now we will go to John and Matt's concluding remarks. Again, you both have 3 minutes, so I don't know if I was clear about that, but total of 6 minutes total. So I don't know which one of you would like to go first for your 3 minutes.
What would you prefer, John?
Maybe you could go first, Matt.
Okay. Well, actually, I think this was. It seemed like to me that they were trying to redefine the title of the debate. The title of the debate was clearly, "Does Christianity better explain morality than atheism?" Not does some atheist philosopher who most likely stole ideas influenced by the Christian worldview can he offer an explanation of a morality from stealing from other worldviews? That wasn't the debate. The debate was, does atheism it was atheism versus Christianity. So the issue here is we can't change the criteria of the debate during the middle of the debate. We didn't talk about that. It was understood to be atheism in and of itself, which cannot. I kept being accused of begging the question, but having a worldview is not begging the question. A network of presuppositions that are not tested by natural science and in terms of which all experiences are related, interpreted, is not begging the question. I was simply pointing out that the Christian worldview, as William Lane Craig says, morality is part and partial of the Christian worldview. Atheism, which is simply a belief that there are no God or gods or a lack of belief in gods, has no essential part of it that offers any explanation for morality. So any attempt to explain atheist morality is not going to be explained by atheism in and of itself. You're going to have to steal from other worldviews in order to do that. Um, I think here that um, Billy conceded the debate in the question section when I said, look, atheism in and of itself isn't going to explain morality. And he conceded that point, but then tried to say, well, there's no contradiction if it does. Well, the point is he conceded that it doesn't, and it doesn't because a lack of belief in God or gods or the belief that there are no gods tells you nothing about morality. So I think the issue here was they were recognizing there was a problem and they were attempting to say, oh, well, we're talking about atheist ethics. Well, the problem with that is when you start getting into the ethics of an atheist, you're not going to be able to separate the ethics that you hold to from the influence of the Christian worldview that you most likely were brought up in or influenced by. So, even in that regard, atheism is going to have to an atheist is going to have to steal from, or as I like to say, bite the hand that feeds them from Christianity or a theistic worldview. And that's why Christianity offers a better explanation than atheism. I'm not sure how much time I have left, but I just wanted to reiterate my syllogism here. If morality is an essential part of the Christian worldview, and atheism in and of itself tells us nothing about morality, then Christianity is better explaining morality. Premise two, morality is an essential part of the Christian worldview, and atheism in and of itself tells us nothing about morality. Conclusion, Christianity is better at explaining morality. And John offered in his opening statement why about morals. You can read through Scripture. We can see that morality is grounded on the nature of God and who God is. And Billy also, I feel like, nuked his argument when he conceded that morality is subjective under atheism, but his whole argument was dependent upon the Euthyphro dilemma, which he was trying to expose the arbitrariness of God. But the problem is he falls on his own sword because we can trust that God is not going to change. His nature isn't going to change. But the subjective mind of the human changes quite often. So therefore, if arbitrariness is the problem, then obviously Christianity is superior at explaining morality than atheism because uh, there is no arbitrariness in a God whose nature does not change. We can trust that his nature will always be reliable. And even if we were going to say it's arbitrary to God, God is the arbiter of truth. He's the arbiter of morality. So ultimately, we still have the superior view on morality that an atheist can offer, even from stealing from other ideas. They're still not going to have a better view than Christianity.
So, Jason, do I get a full 3 minutes or is it combined six? Just out of curiosity.
Well, Matt used some of your time, so you actually only have about a minute and a half.
I thought you were going to stop at 3 minutes.
So that's how you're doing it. We're not doing it 3 minutes each. You didn't stop him at
Well,
three.
you have a total of 6 minutes, and Matt
Didn't know
ate
that it
into
was
your
a
time.
total of six, according to the. And then when you gave him uh, a minute and a half, also at the very end, I didn't know it was that was part of the agreement of total six. I heard it. I thought it was 3 minutes each, just like the opening, 5 minutes each. But in any case, I'll try to wind it up in a minute and a half. If I
Okay,
can start with the
okay, that's
minute,
fine. We'll give you a little bit of leeway there. So just you can do your closings, and we'll give you a little bit of extra
we'll
time.
do it in a minute and a half. But anyway,
Okay.
okay. So the debate here tonight was about Christianity and atheism. And I think Christianity explains what good and evil even is. As I explained under atheism, like Nietzsche, right? As far as being an illusion, Dawkins, as far as there being no good and evil in this natural universe. There's been no establishment whatsoever of what good and evil is. And so there's some ambiguity as to what there is, as to whether it's subjective, whether it's objective. I think our opponents provided multiple possibilities, but Christianity is very clear and unambiguous as to good and evil, as far as where the goodness lies. It lies in God. Once again, no one is good but God alone. And so when I laid it out that when James 2:10 talks about when we break a law or code, we are lawbreakers. All of us have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. Therefore, none of us are good under the Christian worldview. It's very, very simple. We don't just say, well, you know what, we're sinful, but we do these things, and it's kind of just no. Isaiah 64 says all of us have become worthless as the wind sweeps us away. It says, right, and so. Um, all of us have become unclean. I'm sorry. And so basically, that's the understanding of the Christian worldview. Very clear, very concise in terms of who we are. We are flawed creatures. We're not good. So with respects to goodness itself, it is grounded in God. Under atheism, what is there? Piper kind of mentioned the natural sciences. The natural sciences are going to tell us what good and evil is. So what are you going to bro? The flourishing of human beings, as Sam Harris might say. Like what? Empathy, as Franz de Waal might say. I mean, the way I look at it, as Matt said, you're just quoting a bunch of people, and they're guess what? They're ripping off from the Christian view. So what do we have? Atheism. Atheism is a belief that there is no God. What does it offer in terms of morality? The answer is nothing. Absolutely nothing. Doesn't provide any reasoning. As Kai Nielsen, who happens to be an atheist, says that pure practical reason, even with a good knowledge of the facts, cannot take you to morality. I've seen no evidence whatsoever from our opponents that atheism provides any basis for morality whatsoever. I've heard Billy, all he was doing was arguing against theism. He's expecting arguments for it. And what I saw was he did not even defend his view. Neither did Piper. That neither of them defended a view, a representative of atheism, in a sense that they said, well, it could be this and it could be that and it could be that too. Could be this does not establish that it's somehow better explanation than what is, which is Christianity. And so I would basically like to conclude that our opponents offered absolutely nothing as it pertains to atheism being the better explanation. And I think that we have offered how even we can be good people. Piper has not provided anything. We can be good people in a
Okay,
sense
John.
that we're imputed the righteousness of Christ through faith.
Okay, great. Thanks, guys. Thanks for accommodating that. I gave you extra time there, John. I gave you a full
Yeah,
3 minutes.
sure.
Okay.
Thank you.
Uh, um, okay, great. That's the conclusion. And now I believe we're going to do Q&A.
Hey, so start raising your hand, people, and then we'll bring you up in order. Our first person, I'm sending you the invite now. Go ahead and come on stage.
Hey, thanks for bringing me up. Um,
Welcome. You can ask question to any one of the debaters.
yeah, so this is more towards the Christian morality. Either one could answer really. I think maybe it was John Lee who just said that it's like a virtue that of Christian morality that it's grounded in God, who's objective and it's like unchanging. And even if that's the case, what does it even matter? Since throughout history, people have interpreted the Bible like kind of however they want, and committed like atrocities, and based this in the Bible. So even if God has this objective view of morality, if people can interpret the Bible however they want, does it even matter? And like, is that even a virtue at the end of the day?
Yeah, very good question. And so people claiming to be Christian, flawed creatures claiming to be Christian, does not establish that number one, that they are even Christian, that what they are acting is good as it pertains to God's nature. And so merely that particular claim, we are not the judge. How can we determine? We don't. There's only James says that there is only one lawgiver and judge, the one who is able to save and destroy, and therefore who are you to judge your neighbor? And so what you're doing, attempting to do, sir, is to determine whether these people are Christian, acting good, and all of these various people who have contrary actions and expressed beliefs and so forth. How can we determine? Well, the answer is you don't. It is God who is the judge of all.
All right, and Piper or Billy, either one of you can get 30 seconds to put a little bow on that, and vice versa. If a question's asked to you guys, John in no degree will get that time.
I don't have anything to say.
No, that's fine.
All righty, Jack, you may ask your question.
Yeah, thanks. Hi, first time caller, long time listener. Wanted to ask an open two-part question for the whole panel. Why is it wrong to drown babies, and how do you know that?
Well, as far
I
as
mean, I guess I
God
can go.
goes,
Johnny,
well, I'm just
you want to go
quick,
first,
quick
right?
response. As far as God goes, there's nothing wrong with drowning babies. What are you getting at?
That's uh, that's the that's the best response I could have hoped for from you, John. Yeah, I mean, I'll give my view. My view is that the good is to be identified with positive freedom for human beings, so control over one's life and circumstances. Obviously, drowning a baby is inconsistent with that. Um, and the way I'd say I know that is by looking at, you know, the things that have mattered to human beings historically, the things that human beings have struggled for historically. Human beings have struggled for freedom historically, right? And even when they've acted against the freedom of other human beings, they haven't acted against their own freedom. So it's a sort of teleological conception of ethics. Yeah, that's my view.
All righty,
Um,
JL, it's.
oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Billy.
Oh no, I was just going to say, as a principal particularist, I would say that drowning babies more often than not causes pain. It's which I negatively favor. It kills sentient life, which I negatively favor, and you know, at the if there are no other moral factors at play, then that would be wrong. As a moral subjectivist, I think it's wrong in um, because you know, I don't like it. I mean, it seems just obvious, right? That would
So
be immoral.
what? What if there are other moral factors at play?
John,
Then
I don't
what?
We
think
do
that was
want
for
to.
you to respond
Then
to.
Yeah.
it could be right
We
to do so.
we do want to. We do want to keep like the question part moving.
Do I
All
get
right.
to respond? Do I get to answer
Yes,
real quick?
Matt.
The reason
Matt, you
why the reason why we know that drowning babies are wrong is because according to Romans, God has laid in our heart. He's given us a moral compass, that's innate to all of us. So we have this moral intuition given to us by God, and we recognize that our conscience bearing witness that when we kill a baby or do something like that unjustly, that it's wrong and immoral.
Alrighty, JL, it is your time to ask your question.
Oh, thank you very much. I appreciate you bringing me up. I'm going to try and make this quick and try not to be too wordy. This is kind of for John and for Matt. So, given the name of the debate, that it was like what provides a better explanation for morality, Christianity, or I guess non-theism, like non-Christianity or whatever. So, given what we understand about God and what Matt was explaining, that nothing dictates, or I would say, Matt, in this first part, do you agree, or Matt and John, do you agree that nothing dictates or constrains what God is? Is that something you agree with?
Nothing
No,
constrains
I
what
don't know
God
that
is.
I'd agree with that.
I don't
I
agree with
mean,
that either.
God can't lie.
I was just going to say that too.
God
God is
can't
Okay.
murder.
constrained to do evil.
Well, okay, no. Well, it's either yes.
Sorry,
And
I'm sending people down right after they ask the question so that the people they ask the question to can answer it, and then the other debaters can get a chance to respond.
yeah, there are constraints with God. For example, as the old philosophical question, God cannot create a rock, he cannot lift. He's constrained by what is logically possible.
Yeah, so,
Garbage.
any predictions for John and Matt declare victory?
We can hear you on YouTube.
Oh, sorry, that's fine.
Well, what was it like? I didn't hear any of it.
I mean, I don't even know how to describe it.
It was just a fucking dumpster fire. It was horrible.
Matt took the angle of atheism is just, dictionary definition, just one proposition. Therefore, one proposition can't have an explanation for morality.
We got to get John on that God is not a person thing. I should have clipped that. I'm gonna have to go find it.
What did you say at the end there, Tom, when he asked him about drowning babies and John
Yeah, I
real
said,
quickly
I have the quote, there's nothing wrong with drowning babies, John Lee.
Yeah.
he couldn't get it out fast enough. He wanted to say that so bad.
What did Piper say where John just started talking at like 0.25? Was it the Euthyphro stuff? Yeah, that's what it was.
I was not really a fan of Billy's angle of attack.
Oh my god, Piper letting him talk for so long. Piper should have spoke up.
I think Piper had good things, but she talks so fast and crams so much into her opening that it was, for me, it was hard to follow.
Yes, I wasn't too impressed with Billy either. I like Billy. I just doesn't seem to do real well in debates.
I was thinking about ending the stream, but I want to hear the sniveling from John and Matt, or in the sort of,
He said something that Matt
parade.
jumped all over and declared victory over. I didn't hear exactly what he said, but Matt was like, "That's it. The debate's over. We won."
Yeah, it was the comment that atheism doesn't, but it might.
If you guys haven't watched my video yet, please click it. It's in the chat. Pump those views up, boys.
Wow.
I know, right? All that majesty, and that's
It's
all that I
very
can think of.
disrespectful. Very disrespectful.
That was fucking hilarious.
It's extremely disrespectful. Man, are they almost done with the Q&A? I just want to hear their
whinging.
Yeah, well, they're gonna be like celebratory, and so I just want to hear it.
I don't think they're going to come in here. I think they'll start their own room.
Make sure they have a safe space. Yeah, but will they able to will they be able to resist if they think that they've like crushed their enemies?
I had James pin the link to the room in the other room, so hopefully a lot of people will come over, and maybe they won't be able to resist the number of people that are here.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll stick around for a while longer.
Well, they're still doing Q&As.
Uh-oh, apparently Toxic Taylor is going mental.
This is a daycare for atheist boys. Yo, Boris, I gotta go to Nadia. It's the same matchmaker. They download bots from the Google image and they put them up. That's what they think about all day. It's the atheists. Do you think that's why you think God knows everything? Yeah, I do think about Punani all day. But do you think God created cameras in the world that you make stores?
Question. I was trying to unmute. Good,
Yeah.
good catching, Jason.
Yeah, so let's bring up the next person. I'm going to move you back down, Honest. Okay. I think Soltex was next.
I think so too.
Okay.
Soltex,
Matt
go
John.
ahead.
So, as society has changed over thousands of years, do you think morality in itself has changed? Like, it's common now that we don't stone adulterers and stone homosexuals, and we've decided that slavery is immoral. Do you think morality has changed with society, or should we keep with the norms that we had 1,000 years ago?
Yeah.
No, I'll go ahead, John. You can go.
I was just going to say morality has not changed.
I would agree. What you're saying here, what you're judging by changing is people's responses to certain things, but no, morality has not changed. Punishment for certain things may have changed, but it still hasn't changed that murder is wrong or that rape is wrong or anything like that. That's always remained consistent because God is consistent.
Okay. I don't know who's next. It's either Charles or Sakura. I don't know,
Let's go,
James, if you know.
Charles.
Can I just
Okay.
say one thing
Okay.
really
Yeah.
quickly?
Yeah, of course, Billy.
Yeah. So I just wanted to say that unchanging is not the way I define as arbitrary. And I define arbitrary as not having reasons. You just like it because that's just the way you feel or something like that. So like, and I mean, I've always thought, for example, that torture is wrong, right? In and of, torture in and of itself is wrong. Um, I haven't changed my view, but presumably my view is subjective, and presumably Matt and John would agree that it's arbitrary. But nevertheless, it hasn't changed. So, yeah, I think there's a little bit of a distinction between the way I use arbitrary and the way they use. And if they want to adopt their definition, then my view about torture being wrong is not arbitrary. But yeah.
Yeah, could I say something too?
Yes, you may.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure why Christians are enamored with this view of God as static, because if God's static, like he doesn't change, right? Then like, you know, he can't there's no way to make sense of him responding to what happens in creation such that he punishes the wicked and offers spiritual guidance to the believers, right? So, that I think creates an incoherence problem.
More like mystery.
Okay, Charles, did you want to go ahead with your question?
Yeah, my question is just for Matt Adams. Matt, did you think that when Billy and Piper agreed to this debate, that they were agreeing to just talk about the proposition that God does not exist and use only that to talk about an argument for morality?
No, I think they agreed to, does Christianity offer a better explanation of morality than atheism? So when Billy started asking in the question section this argument about God's existence and stuff, then I didn't know really where he was going there. I think he kind of really fumbled a lot of his valuable time asking questions.
Yeah, I
Did you
think
think
Matt
they were
just
gonna?
can. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, did you think they were gonna, bring up issues related to
Sorry, Charles.
atheism, like the belief?
Sorry, Charles. Sorry, there's only one question per person. My apologies.
No worries.
Okay, next to Matthew Sparrow. I'm going to give you one more try. Matthew, click on your profile. It'll say you've been invited to the stage, and then join up, buddy.
Oh, could
Success.
I
Third
say
time's a
something
charm.
about? Could I say something about
Yes,
that last
Piper.
question? Yeah, thank you. Sorry
Yes.
for.
Yeah, I actually wanted to respond just to one statement as well, Pepper, but go ahead.
Yeah, that's okay. Sorry for I'll try to be more timely next time. But yeah, I just wanted to say I think Matt just conceded that his point about atheism being one proposition that doesn't address morality was a silly point to make and like false in response to Charles' question. So anyway,
I think it could have been boiled down to uh, does belief in Jesus Christ a better explanation for morality than believing that there is no God? And I just don't see that how believing that there's no God can provide any basis whatsoever um, for a better explanation for morality.
That's right.
Okay, Michael, did you have a question?
Yes. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah. So, why does God on a regular basis murder so many God fearing, God loving, innocent people on a regular basis? For
Wow,
example,
that's
via the typhoon that killed 100, 200 plus people, or earthquakes, hurricanes, typhoons, murder, etc. Why does that happen?
well, your question is loaded on multiple fronts. Innocent, right? Says who? Innocent according to whom? Murder says whom? According to your standards and your view, or according to God's laws? So it's not an internal critique, certainly not. And so it's just a loaded question that doesn't even deserve a response.
Yeah, and the Bible says the earth and everything in it belongs to the Lord. He's the giver and taker of life, according to Scripture. He everything he does by his nature will be done justly. So when a typhoon, God allows a typhoon to take out thousands of lives and things like that, he's not murdering. God is just doing what he has the right to do. And, that's why he also has the right to give life. And John pointed out, through Jesus Christ, he can give life, eternal life, to those who believe in him.
Okay. So I think we're
Oh,
gonna.
see,
Oh, yeah. Go ahead, James. Go ahead. Sorry.
no, what were you going to say, Jason?
I was just gonna say it's Sakura next, and then Sully, and then JL. Does that sound okay?
Yep, and JL will be the last one.
Yeah.
Howdy, guys. Good debate there. I've got a question for these atheists, and I know you said, James, earlier you don't want two-part questions, but I've got a clarificatory yes or no question, if that's okay.
It's getting to the very end. We'll let it slide. We are bringing JL up to ask his second question, so
Thank you.
let's roll with it.
All right. So, you put forward a couple of contenders for like the atheist moral theories, you guys, like sort of Platonism, etc. Just to clarify, you think that those do have the capacity to explain like our moral datum, like why killing babies is wrong, right? Simple yes or no for the
Yeah.
atheists. Okay, and
Yeah.
then the real question is, if you were to compare it to like the Christian theories put forward by Matt and John, of whom I will refer to as Jat for the rest of this question, how would you compare them along theoretic virtue lines? And that's my question.
Yeah, I mean, so I think so. Like the virtues that I sort of laid out in my opening were like accounting for the supervenience of the moral and the natural, accounting for certain moral intuitions, um, and um, and so I don't think that a theistic view is going to account for the supervenience of the moral and the natural in any way other than just saying, well, look, I mean, God creates you to recognize certain happenings in the natural world as sinful or whatever. Whereas, relativism and naturalism um, are going to have a very straightforward story to tell about, why we recognize certain happenings in the natural world as wrong or right. On relativism, it's going to be because, the observer has a certain mental desirous mental state related to those actions that they not happen or that they happen. And on naturalism, it's just going to be that those actions, those natural properties have a moral value, right? I think like, non-naturalism is going to do much better on the um, considerations about the prescriptive or rather the descriptive rather than prescriptive nature of science than a theistic um, view is. I mean, that's something you maybe could say in favor of a theistic view, but non-naturalism will be able to count for that well, as will relativism. Um, so, I mean, as far as I can see, right, you know, given these secular philosophical considerations, there's really nothing that would motivate anybody, at least on explanatory grounds, to go for a theistic explanation.
Yeah, I think that just very briefly, I think Scott Berman has independent arguments for Platonism, and I think that his version of moral realism fits nicely with people's everyday moral intuitions. I think he has independent. I think there are independent arguments against the view that abstract objects and things can be mental. So that will sort of if you think that abstract objects do exist and they can't be mental and presumably can't be physical, so that rules out divine conceptualism. And so I think that Scott Berman at least will have independent reasons for thinking that there is some sort of realm of non-spatiotemporal objects. And this fits very nicely with a moral realist conception.
Just a quick,
Simplicity.
just a quick question, Billy. Are you a moral realist by any chance?
No. But I think this view is perfectly fine. I don't see a contradiction. So yeah. I can go on, but for the interest of time, I'm going to stop.
You had no intention of putting forward your own view today?
This isn't.
Yeah,
So
okay.
this wouldn't be like a continuation of a debate. But if you would like to make
Sure.
if you haven't made a
He already
comment,
said it was subjective, John,
Yeah, no, I mean we could discuss it later,
meaning
Billy, but
arbitrary.
I don't want to take up Sully's time.
alrighty, Solly, go ahead.
All right, thank you. So if some action, for example, torturing babies for fun, is objectively wrong, then the attitudes, beliefs, perspectives, and utterances of particular agents cannot affect the moral valence of that action. So why would God's attitudes, beliefs, or utterances affect the moral valence of that action?
Are you asking Matt and I?
I don't have a clue what you just asked,
I was trying to
but maybe
understand
John
it
does.
myself.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I can repeat it. So like, if some action is objectively wrong, then the attitudes, beliefs, utterances of particular agents don't have anything to do with that action being, objectively wrong. So
That's
why would
correct.
God's attitudes, beliefs, or utterances have anything to do with that action being wrong?
Oh, because that which is good is grounded in God and not our mind, not our actions, not our utterances, not even anything external to God. And we existing external to God has absolutely nothing to do with that which is good or evil.
Okay.
I will not. I will not answer because I still didn't understand the question, but I trust that John did.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Sully. I'm sure there'll be a time to follow up on that in the after party. And I think JL is the last one. Let's invite JL up. If you're still here, JL, I sent you an invite. There he is. Okay.
Yes, I am here.
Great. Go ahead.
Okay, I apologize. I didn't realize before it was a one question. So I actually wrote this out so that I can get this across without wasting too much time. All right, so this is for John and Matt. So John and Matt have constantly stated that God's nature is immutable, but they've also ignored the fact that nothing constrains God's nature outside of logic itself, which means that God dictates its own nature as far as morality goes. Now, that statement about immutability is derived from the Bible, but the truth of it is faith based and ultimately begging the question, as there is no logical contradiction in a creator deity that lies to us for what it states is our own good. So, if the Christian foundation of morality is ultimately begging the question, concluding God can't lie just because the book says it can't, how is that more reliable or efficient in explanation than the evidence based biological explanation for moral frameworks established by naturalism?
Yeah, I mean your question is related to something that's not part of the argument, whether God can lie or not. This is kind of has a resemblance of like Stephen Law's evil God argument, Cartesian scenarios, all of these things. These are complicated questions that cannot be just answered in one question. So
Sure, they
the
can.
Bible. Well, okay. How about this then? The Bible says that God cannot lie, and there's reasons to believe the Bible's true. There you go.
But like I said, but you've ignored the first half of my question. So ultimately, it's a begging the
Well,
question
the only
fallacy
thing you've
because
done is accuse it of begging the question, but it's actually not. And I wish there was a philosopher, I forget his name, who actually gave a lesson on this here on Clubhouse, who's an atheist philosopher, who said a presupposition or a worldview is not begging the question.
Wait a minute.
Because
I told him that there's reasons to believe the Bible's true. That's not begging the question.
Sorry,
Yeah,
I
no,
picked up the
and that,
wrong phone as I was coming back. I just want to remind the people asking the question, it is not a mini debate or anything like that. It's to
right.
ask the question and then they continue. Thank you,
Yeah,
JL.
I just say it's not begging the question is my answer.
And then
Okay, you cut off there.
or
You're breaking up. Say it again, James.
I just saying Billy, Piper, any of you guys want to add anything?
No, I'm good.
Yeah, I'm fine.
Would you guys mind taking one more question? We got one more late minute addition.
Yeah,
It's
that's
up
fine.
to the debaters.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. All right.
Hi. I had a question for all four of you guys, or both sides. My question was for specifically for the Christians. How would you determine whether something is morally correct or not if it's not specifically talked about in the Bible? And for the atheists, the question would be the same, but it would just be in general, how would you determine if something is right or wrong? What outside source would you use if you can't figure it out yourself? I
Uh,
offer either any
okay.
perspective.
I have a quick answer for you, Shay. We don't determine, but it is the case that the Holy Spirit does reveal. And so what is made known is not a deduction or it's not a conclusion.
Yeah, so that's an interesting question. I think and I think Malpass is right when he says that there's no sort of metric or meter for like moral claims that you can judge it against. I think the best that we can do is look at things we take to be obviously right and obviously wrong, and the things we're unsure about, we we think about the considerations at play, what the goods are, what the evils are, and we make decisions based on the cases that we are very clear about. And it's not always easy to do. But I think intuitions are going to play a big part, and we do the best that we can.
Yeah. So, question Shay asked about is normative ethics, which, you know, is basically sort of philosophical theorizing about how to go about the sort of uh, developing a sort of theory for assessing, um, right and wrong action. Um, the view that sort of Billy articulated is like particularism, which denies that there's like an overarching principle which you can do so. You have to judge the particular cases. Um, the view that I have is something called virtue ethics. It goes back to Aristotle. Um, basically, I think, you identify right and wrong actions by identifying certain virtues that, if you live in accord with them, you will live a good human life, right? And the particular virtue that I'd identify is, or virtues, is striving for human freedom and living as a free human being, right? So that's my view. Um, uh,
Well, my view is that we're told in the Bible, specifically Romans, that God has, even to the Gentiles who have no law, God has given us these innate moral ideas. So we can, our conscience, Paul argues that our conscience is bearing witness, convicting us or excusing us. So we have this conscience that God has given us. So even the non believer can do certain things and recognize by their own guilt, their own conscience, that they've acted in a manner that they should have not acted by. So this is given to us as innate from God, and that's how we can know. I think the question was if we didn't have the Bible or something like that, but that's how we could know.
Alrighty. I want to thank both debaters. I want to thank Jason for helping mod this debate as well. Once again, there's a link to an after party in the top, so feel free to join that if you are interested. Also, as a just another fun point of moderation, I normally don't tell who I thought won these debates, so I figured what I would do is I've been struggling a bit on some bills. So if I get up to $100 in PayPal or Cash App donations, I will tell publicly who I think won this debate and why. But once again,
Well, we
click the
already
after.
know who you think won it, but yeah, everybody do that because I want to hear James express it publicly.
But I want to leave that link up for a minute so people can switch over.
Do you
So
want us
please,
to hop in there now, James?
yeah, go ahead.
Are the
Well, I'm excited to go see what everybody's doing. Oh, I missed it, but I'll check it out. Thanks for
I'm gonna.
By the way,
peace out,
James
but
and
I wanted
Jason,
to
thanks
wait,
for
Matt.
the
Hold on.
yeah,
moderation.
Piper? Thanks, Billy. Thanks for the discussion.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just
Thanks,
wanted to
Piper and
say
Billy.
thank you to you. Yeah, I just want to say thanks to Matt and John for doing this. Thanks, Billy, for being my partner, and thanks to you guys, Jason and James, who modded. You guys did a great job. So yeah.
Yeah, James and Jason had to do a little bit of work tonight, so good job.
Yeah, great job, guys. Very fun. Glad everybody came. So
Yeah, thanks everyone. I appreciate it.
Alrighty, guys, and I got the room open just a little longer. Please navigate over to the other room. And once again, thank everybody
Which
for
room
joining.
is this? Dumpster fire debate after show?
It is that one.
I think Rascal opened a
'Cause
room as
there's
well.
another
I
one that
jumped in
Rascal
there.
has. Let's see.
Somebody
Oh,
get
we're not.
tell.
I'm not promoting Rascals, but you could always go to Rascals if you would prefer to go to Rascals.
No, I'll go to the dumpster fire one. Looks like Skinny Pizza, a mod though. That might be interesting.
Yep.
Where is John? I hear John talking, but I don't see him.
He's coming up now, Matt. I sent him an invite.
Hey,
So,
it's Delano. Hey, Delano.
so how do you guys feel after losing a debate?
Oh, hey, buddy. Did you figure out who's gonna eat your wife? In case you guys
Y'all
didn't know,
asking
John is
Piper
committed
and
to the view
Billy?
of when somebody dies, it's completely okay to do whatever you want to the vessel.
Oh, that's not my view. We hold the body sacred. We believe in the resurrection of the body.
Oh, yeah, sure you do. So what spices for the sausage, John?
John, I did want to say congratulations. By the way,
I have to
For
say, you
for
guys are
for
definitely not sore losers.
for participating, right, Matt?
Also, everybody should know that that was
no, for
John
winning.
trying to tell me to kick him from the room so he didn't have to deal with the criticisms that he's about to receive.
Well, what y'all's thoughts?
I mean, Rascal had a room open. I don't know. I thought this was a James is Tired endorsed room.
It is.
Where is he?
What does that have to do with anything?
He came up just a second ago. I sent him he was in here just a second. Here he is. He's back again.
I'm here. I'm outside because I got to get something situated in the backyard now. So it might be a hot minute before I can answer. But my offer still stands in the other room. So for anybody who saw the end of that, we will see.
Matt, I
I'd like
just want
to.
to, well, real quick, Bill, Matt, I just want to say one thing. You kept saying part and like something else. It's part and parcel.
Partial is what.
Yeah, you're
Oh,
saying
yeah.
part and partial. It's
Parcel.
parcel.
Well, from my understanding, he said part and parcel. Maybe the
No, he said
Ten
I
of
pronunciation
think I
came
did.
up.
he
I
said
did say
partial.
part.
John, 10 of us heard him.
I did say partial. I do remember
Yeah,
saying that.
yeah,
One
10 of us
time.
heard him say that, John. Interesting
I
that you
may
would
have
remember it
accidentally.
the other
I
way,
may have
though.
accidentally
Because he
said it
mentioned part and
right one
parcel
time,
earlier
but normally
today.
I'll say partial. Sometimes I'll say partial.
Interesting that you would remember it wrong, John. Very interesting.
Didn't you mention Craig early this morning, Matt? And you said
Yeah,
part and
actually,
parcel?
and I do remember saying it correctly this morning, and I
Right.
said it correctly in another room, but sometimes I'll say partial. I have a habit of saying partial instead of parcel, so I probably did say that in the
Looks
debate.
like they
Yeah.
caught it.
Wow.
That's the best they have.
We're just listening
That
closely to you,
that
Matt. So
is.
you should appreciate that. We're listening closely to
Oh,
you.
I have copious
Yeah.
notes, John, and
It was
tomorrow
the
I might
meaning. It's
open a room
essential.
about God not being a person. That's gonna be fun. I can't wait.
I can't believe you
Tell
thought
him got
the
a few
issue.
flips.
The implicit understanding is a human person.
Well, what's your thoughts? I mean, don't you want to
What are
say
your
who won
thoughts,
here?
Matt? Let's hear your thoughts real quick,
I
Matt.
think John and I came in, did
Hold on,
what
get
we
this
had
guy
to
to fix
do,
his mic. He's really quiet.
accomplished it, and we won.
Fix your
Matt,
mic,
you are quiet.
Matt.
Can you fix your mic, please?
You do sound very far away.
Yeah, we're certainly not talking about a corporation, are we?
Testing 1, 2, 3.
Yes,
But nice
sound
try.
better.
That's
That's
better.
better.
Yeah, that sounds really good, Matt. But nice try, guys.
Yeah.
Person. Woohoo. Got him. Gotcha.
Well, you didn't make a case, so you didn't win.
Gotcha.
But that was just an addendum
Checkmate.
that I will be opening a room about that and watching you lose.
Partial. We got him again, guys. Partial.
I mean,
Wow,
it's kind
he's
of funny
activated.
coming from the Matt side of the debate, whose main like attempt at winning was saying, "Oh, well, atheism doesn't include a moral theory in the definition of atheism." Nice, nice
Well,
job.
that's true.
It was funny because John tried to
God.
make fun of Billy when he said that there's like no contradiction in a view that holds atheism, like meeting the condition for morality. And I think the words Billy used was might.
That's like,
and then like John Lee freaked out, but he didn't show like any symmetry breaker there. He didn't show why might be able to. So that was funny.
Okay, I have to mute up because I have to. It's late, but I just
have
have
an
one
answer.
thing, one quick thing. Just
I can't answer him.
You can in just 1 second because I have to mute up. Did we already make fun of him for forgetting what part of the debate he was in when they were doing rebuttals and he started asking questions? Has that already happened?
I mentioned it in the live chat. I mentioned it in the live
Not,
chat
you
when it was
could
going
you
on.
could do it, Ron. That's fine.
I quickly got it, John. He got back.
Yeah, so basically there's no contradiction in a pig flying to the moon, right? Well, is that to say that that is somehow better because there's no contradiction?
Wait. You're leaving out an important part. First of all, I said there's no contradiction in the
I can't
view.
even finish, huh, Billy?
No, you can't finish.
Yeah, Billy.
because
No,
you're-
Billy. Just let him finish. Then correct him. Let him finish, please.
All right, fine.
Yeah, I mean, basically, so rocket built by NASA going to the moon is clearly better than a pig flying to the moon. If you want to compare which is better, contradiction doesn't imply better. I mean,
Okay.
no contradiction, that is.
No, go ahead, Billy.
Exactly.
Yeah, so he's missing a large part of what I said. First, I said there was no contradiction, and then secondly, I said that he didn't provide an argument to show that one view is better than the other. So the fact that there's no contradiction shows that it's possible, but then he needs to present an argument, because remember, the burden of
I
proof is on him
reject that.
to show that
I reject
Christianity
any
is.
argument.
Sorry,
let him
just
finish,
one
John.
second. So the burden of proof on his side is to show that Christianity is better than the other views that Piper and myself espoused, and I would argue that neither opponent did that.
I mean, as far as better, Billy, at least Piper offered up something in terms of trying to demonstrate. It's a hard task. I agree that you guys both had a sort of an uphill battle. But however, what you were doing, Billy, was you were just shifting the burden all over the place. You're just saying they need an argument for this, they need an argument for that. There's a criticism for this, in my view. There's a criticism for that. Coons, Euthyphro, whatever, this and that. You provided absolutely nothing in terms of substance of how atheism is better, Billy. Nothing.
And even Piper's was just like, oh, this is what some atheist philosopher says.
But it was better.
Atheist philosopher
Wait, hold
would
on.
have
Did you
stolen,
just
grabbed ideas from a fruit salad of ideas from
Yeah, this is
different
nothing.
worlds.
Did you
Matt,
show
And didn't really
dumb
offer
is better
somehow
than
I'm
dumber.
sorry, John. Hello. Did you show somehow that your view was better?
Yeah.
How?
This is grounded in God's nature. He explained that at the beginning.
How does that make it better?
Because it's grounded in God's nature, and atheism is just a belief that there are no gods.
How does it make
No
it
grounding
better?
anything as far as morality. It literally says 0 about morality.
How does it
I'll
make
probably
it
go to
Yeah.
Just a
Piper.
Because
fart
it
in the
actually
Yeah,
wind.
Matt,
about
that's
morality.
Matt. That's why Piper was saying that you're begging the question, because you're not giving a reason. You're just saying it is because
Oh,
God
that's
is.
not begging the question. I mean, y'all got
It
corrected
is.
on that by a philosopher here.
When you said
Who's an
no, Matt,
atheist.
when you said it
I
was
can't
better,
remember. I
when you said it
can't
was better, you
remember
said it was
his
better
name.
because it was grounded in
You
God's
remember
nature.
his name, John?
I just have one question for Billy. Billy, do you regret any part of your negotiations?
Yeah, I think you're correct in that I should have clarified what better meant. So I think you're correct in that, yeah.
No further questions.